The January 12, 2017 meeting of the Williamsburg City Council will come to order. Ms. Walton?
Mr. Zhang?
Here.
Mr. Pons?
Here.
Mayor Freiling?
Here.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Before us today, we have the council meeting minutes of December 5 and December 8, and the December 14 Joint City Council Economic Development Authority and Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Mr. Zhang?
Aye.
Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
We have one matter of special privilege today, and that is to present an Excellence in Service Award to Williamsburg Award to Landscape Superintendent Will Fiddler. Mr. Fiddler, if you'd join me up front, please. And this is the award that's presented quarterly to employees of the city who represent the highest ideals of what the city stands for, the behaviors that we seek, and the dedication and commitment to their job. And the wonderful thing about this award is that it is recognition from your peers. They are the group that chooses the recipient. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read this resolution, and then I'll let you say a few words if you'd be so kind. The City of Williamsburg takes pleasure in recognizing Will Fiddler for excellence in service to Williamsburg. Will Fiddler has faithfully and effectively served the Williamsburg public for over 8 years. As the city's landscape superintendent in the Public Works Department, Will is responsible for the overall beautification of the city's public property to include mowing, planting, and maintaining all plant materials, shrubs, and the city's tree inventory. He masterfully designs all of the city's landscape beds, creating colorful and beautiful displays in the entrance corridors and in front of public buildings. His spring creations alone involve planting more than 12,000 tulip and daffodil bulbs each year. I hope you have a little help in that regard. Will was instrumental in developing the city's successful Heritage Tree Program and was responsible for identifying the initial list of heritage trees in the city. He is the city's liaison with the area garden clubs, working on special projects including Arbor Day, Getty Park, and the recent Bicentennial Park Blue Star Memorial, and creating all of the city's live Christmas trees for our public buildings. Will was also the impetus behind the magnificent Christmas poinsettia tree that adorns the lobby of the municipal building each holiday season. Will plays a key role each year for the United Way's Day of Caring community outreach. He helps identify city projects, procures supplies, and works shoulder to shoulder with other employees to accomplish tasks that benefit the less fortunate in our city. Will is noted for being a can-do, accommodating leader, whether dealing with city residents or lending a hand to his fellow employees. His dedication and responsiveness set the standard for others to follow. The city is most fortunate to have such a high-caliber and talented employee. Will Fiddler is hereby recognized for his dedication to excellence in keeping with the best traditions of public service in the city of Williamsburg. This is signed by me as the mayor and Marvin Collins, the city manager, on January 12, 2017. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
City Council, Mr. Collins. Thank you, Mr. Clayton. You probably went against your better judgment some years ago and hired me. So, and I know I've given you some reasons to doubt that judgment. But more importantly, thank you to the guys I work with. They often are the ones that put in the time and effort. And unfortunately, I sometimes get the credit, but they really are. It's been an enjoyable 8 years to work with them, both the landscape and other guys within public works. So I'm still fairly young, so I plan to be around for hopefully for quite some time. So I really do appreciate this. Thank you.
We have one public hearing today, and that is a vacation of private alley on Newport Avenue, proposed ordinance 17-01.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Michelle?
Finally, I won't be participating in this discussion today as one of the properties affected is a client of the firm I employed by.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
213 Newport LLC owns 213 Newport Avenue, the property, and they have requested that the city assist them with vacating an 18-foot alley that's between 513 and 515 Newport Avenue. The alley was dedicated on a plat that was recorded in 1930. It was dedicated to the adjacent properties and for the benefit of the property owners in the subdivision. There are a couple of ways that the alley can be vacated, but given the number of properties in the subdivision, this is the most practical way of doing that. The 18-foot alley is currently being used as parking. It, as far as we know, has never in fact been used as an alley. The process is for City Council to adopt an ordinance, which would be ordinance number 1701, vacating the alley. After public hearing and after public notice, which has all been provided as required by the statute. After council adopts the ordinance, any aggrieved person may appeal that decision effectively to the circuit court. After 30 days, if no one has appealed that decision, then the ordinance is recorded, and what that effectively does is split the alley in the middle with 9 feet on each side of that line being dedicated in fee then to the adjacent properties. So the city does not have an ownership or a beneficial interest in the alley, and for that reason the staff has no objection to that. This is effectively a paper alley, and it's one method of vacating an alley that has not been used, and so staff recommends that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 1701.
Any questions for Ms. Shelton?
No.
May I ask one question? It references that it was established to benefit the adjacent, for the benefit of the adjacent property owners. Is that specifically the two homes on either side?
That's right, and for the other property owners in the subdivision. But as the subdivision developed, some properties were joined. There was an alley that was dedicated on the other side of the street that sometime back in the 1980s was vacated by the City Council. So in order to do it some other way, all the other property owners in the subdivision would have to sign a deed of vacation. This is a simpler method of doing that.
And they've all been notified? That
Yes.
yeah. Thank you.
And that includes the college? I assume they're one of the neighbors?
They're not part of the subdivision, so no, it would not include them.
With that, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody who'd like to speak on this matter, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor Freiling, members of City Council. I'm Susan Tarley with Tarley Robinson, and we actually represent 513 Newport LLC in this matter. I really don't have any facts to add to what Ms. Shelton's already told you, but wanted to let you know that we're here if there were any questions that you had for us.
Thank you, Ms. Tarley.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come back to council for comment and a decision.
No questions or comments. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, and I don't have any reason why City Council, I can't think of any reason why City Council wouldn't approve this if staff has vetted it and the adjacent property owners in the subdivision itself all kind of support it, and there's no oppositions, then I'm perfectly comfortable.
Okay. And even after we make a decision today, there's still the opportunity to appeal it should somebody not have been aware of it.
That's correct.
Do I have a motion?
I move that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 17-01.
Seconded.
Ms. Walton?
Mr. Zhang?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Abstain.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
This takes us to our background presentation. Today we have one from Old Town Medical and Dental Center, Executive Medical Director, Dr. William J. Mann, Jr.
I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present to the community on behalf of the Old Town Medical Center. We feel that we have a lot that we can offer to the community, and we'd like to encourage everyone to share the information that we spread today. Our mission is assuring access to quality health and wellness care to the residents and workforce of the greater Williamsburg community. We're a very busy center, founded in 1994. At the current time, the last year, we had 15,390 patient visits. In addition to that, with 3,500 to 4,000 other visits to obtain free prescription medications for patients who couldn't afford it. 98% of our visits were for the 76% of our patients who are uninsured and have no medical coverage at all. If you look at our insured patients, 3% of them are Medicare, 7% are Medicaid, and 14 are essentially underinsured, by which I mean they cannot afford their copays or have deductibles that are so high they cannot reach them. In the past 36 months, we've received $5,000 from Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. What we've noticed is that during the time that the Affordable Care Act was passed, prior to that, 62% of our patients were uninsured. The first year after the Affordable Care Act was passed, 70% of our patients were uninsured. And at the current time, 76% of our patients are uninsured. This is rather paradoxical and not what one would anticipate. I've spoken with the Secretary of Health for our state, and it appears that the Peninsula and the Petersburg area are the only areas that are seeing this. In Western Virginia, they actually are seeing a decrease in the uninsured. Our medical visits represent 78% of our total patient visits, and our dental visits, the remainder, 22%. Our medication assistance program is the program that provides free medications for patients who cannot afford them. And last year, we requested $5,477,898 worth of medications, which were provided free. Demographics of our patients: 8% of our patients are young, 9% are 65 or older. The remaining 83% are in the group of 18 to 64. The females are approximately twice as commonly seen in our clinic as the males, and the racial background is on the last line. No one is turned away in our clinic. 90% of our patients are from York and James City counties and the city of Williamsburg. We have a sliding scale which runs from $10 to $60 and for dental $20 to $70, but if patients cannot afford the sliding scale, then they're seen for what they can afford, and a number of these patients are seen for free. This is the trends in the patient populations for those patients seen at Old Town from the city of Williamsburg. And this is the number of patient visits over that same time period for the city of Williamsburg residents. We are funded primarily by grants. The Williamsburg Health Foundation is our largest supporter. Local government represents 27% of our patient revenue is 18%, and that percentage is falling. And then we have special events. We have the Ford's Colony Golf Tournament, and we have a 5K run, which I hope people will participate in. As I mentioned, we've seen this rising trend in our uninsured patients, which we cannot explain. We have noticed that the high copays and deductibles are forcing some patients who are covered by insurance to use our facility because they can't afford the copays. This impacts us in that it leads to a falling total patient revenue and, of course, a reliance on non-clinical sources of income. We have this laughable joke that what we lose on an individual patient, we hope to make up in volume. You know you can't do that. But our total cost per patient is about $159 per visit. Our total patient revenue per visit is about $32. So our net loss per patient visit is about $127. We try to be one-stop shopping. We provide, of course, primary medical and dental care, and that, along with prenatal care, was what was established at our founding in 1994. Our dental service, which is 22% of our volume, we staff that with 4 part-time dentists, 1 part-time hygienist, 2 full-time dental assistants, and 17 volunteer dentists. And those volunteer dentists are incredibly important to us. These are working dentists and retired dentists who, for free or volunteering, come and spend time with us and take care of our patients. Our goal is to offer dental services 40 hours a week, and currently we're able to do that for 30 to 32 hours a week. As you might expect, it's very difficult to get volunteers for Friday afternoon. Our medical service is staffed by 4 full-time medical providers. That's 1 physician and 3 nurse practitioners, and we will be adding a 4th nurse practitioner shortly. We have 3 part-time providers, a psychiatrist, a sports medicine person, and a obstetrician. And we have 14 volunteer providers. Again, these are physicians in practice who for free are coming to our clinic and seeing our patients. Thanks to the help of these physicians, these are the services we're able to offer: prenatal care, pediatrics, gynecology, psych and psychotherapy, pulmonology, neurology, lab service, retinopathy screening. Hypertension and diabetes are significant causes of blindness, and retinopathy screening is something that has to be done once a year. We're now able to do that at our center, trying to prevent blindness. Then we offer cardiology, orthopedics, sport medicine, derm, HIV/AIDS management, which we do in conjunction with Eastern Virginia Medical School. And of course, we have patient education classes, and we're working on medication literacy, and we offer immunizations. And during the school season, we're swamped with children going back to school. And of course, we have another big turnout when the flu season hits us. Try to collaborate with the community as much as possible. We work with the Chronic Care Collaborative, which was established and is run by the Williamsburg Health Foundation. We work with our 2 local healthcare systems. We actually have established a transitional nurse program, thanks to funding from the Williamsburg Health Foundation, which allows us to concentrate on those patients who are referred from the emergency room for care at our clinic. In the past, 20% of those patients showed up. Now that we've instituted this program, approximately 65% of those patients are showing up, which we hope will decrease emergency room and hospital usage. We collaborate with the food bank because some of our patients are in need of that. We work with Colonial Behavioral Health, who helps us with the behavioral diseases. We also have students from VCU. The medical school sends students who need prenatal care exposure or primary care exposure to us. We work with William & Mary faculty and students, and they've been helping us assess the non-medical needs of the population we serve. And we're working with the Hampton University School of Pharmacy. We're working on trying to improve the medication literacy of our patients. Over the age of 55, our average patient is on 5 medications. We also are working with EVMS, as I mentioned, with the HIV/AIDS service. Centera Health System supports us with our obstetric service so that our 300-plus pregnant women a year can deliver at our regional Centera hospital. And we've been working with the Peninsula Agency on Aging, CDR, because we do offer pediatric services, the Healthcare Association, which helped us at one time to have an in-person assister to help people sign up for the Affordable Care Act. And of course, we accept referrals from all of the faith-based community organizations in our community. This gives you some idea of the volume of the patient referrals to us from our local hospitals. Here's a year in which 1,000 patients were referred to us. And we were able to get 60% of those patients to show up. And this year we're doing a little better than that. What lies ahead for us? The feds passed a law last spring requiring, as of October, that anyone who provides care to anybody who receives any kind of federal support, so that's anybody who has Medicaid or Medicare, must have translating services available for all of their patients. We've recently attended a statewide meeting of safety net clinics, and I'm pleased to say that Old Town is the only clinic in the state of Virginia which is complying with that law. We're increasing our patient education classes, which we now offer in English and Spanish. We're expanding our medication literacy program. We hope to implement a pharmacy, and we now have what's called an MTM pharmacy, which is a medication therapy management. This is where we find patients who can't comply with their medications, review their chart, make sure the doses are appropriate, that there's no interactions, and then we meet with the patient for an hour to explain to them why they're taking these medications and how to take them and to answer their questions. Then that material is entered into our electronic health record so that for subsequent visits we're able to reinforce what we've told that patient. We're still trying to find somebody to volunteer for Fridays, so we hope to increase our dental hours. We're incorporating oral health care into our prenatal care and also into our diabetic management. Diabetic patients that have periodontal disease will not be able to control their diabetes. And we're also concerned in pregnant women that significant periodontal disease may be associated with premature delivery. And we continue to seek out more medical and dental volunteers. In addition to the medical and dental volunteers, we have approximately 60 community volunteers who each month spend time helping us at Old Town. I'd like to stop there, and I would hope that everybody would take this message, and if you know of anyone in need of our services, we would really welcome them into our building. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. If you wouldn't mind just staying there for a minute in case there are questions or comments. Mr. Zhang is our council representative on the Old Town Medical Center board, and perhaps you'd like to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I have a quick question, and then I have several comments along with that. But Right now, I noticed that there's some extensive renovations being done on the building. So, are your operating hours any different due to the renovations, or?
No, the renovations, the building we are in is rented from James City County. The building's approximately 25-plus years old. They're putting on a new roof, a new HVAC system for us, and they're modernizing and updating our waiting rooms and 2 rooms that we use for meetings. This has not interfered with patient flow at all. We've been able to create a temporary waiting area, and so far patient volumes and patient flow haven't been affected. This project started about 9 months ago and is going to be done in April, it's said.
Just another quick question to follow up with that. This is a clarifying question. So anybody can enter Old Town Medical Center and receive any of the medical services. So myself, anyone here on the dais, taxpayers, anyone from the city.
Anyone can come in, and we do not have geographic restrictions. We know that there are people who work in Williamsburg but live elsewhere that find it convenient to use this, and we're happy to do that. We have evening hours twice a week so that people that work can come after work. We also have in place what we call open scheduling, and open scheduling means that if you do not have an appointment but you just walk in, we will give you an appointment and see you that day.
Okay, great. Just wanted to give a couple comments. I think you gave a lot of great data. Thank you so much for your presentation. But oftentimes we can kind of lose sight of how it immediately impacts our citizens. So I wanted to share a story, and also this is to your benefit as well, just hearing of all the great work that you've done every day. So if you don't mind passing this along to your staff. I met an individual, I'll withhold his name at this time, during the campaign trail, and at the time I didn't know he was a patient at Old Town Medical Center. But I actually had the pleasure of running into him a couple days ago, and we sat together at his living room, and we just talked. And at one point, I brought up that I was involved with Old Town Medical Center as the jurisdiction's representative, and he brought up how he was a patient at Old Town Medical Center, and how he was able to rest at night securely without ever having to worry about finding affordable health care services in the area. This individual is a city resident. He works in James City County, so I think we can forgive him for now because he lives in this great city. But fact of the matter is he works in the services industry job. He has a college-age kid who's out of the state right now, and he's able to afford the medical services because of organizations like Old Town Medical Center. And this citizen story kind of made me reflect about the role that Old Town Medical Center plays, and how it fits with the council's policies as a whole. And this is really kind of deeply rooted in my own philosophy of what local government does. And that's my belief, is that local government first and foremost provides a quality of services to its citizens. So, for example, we had the snow plowing this past weekend. That's provided by the city. We care about our waters, our sewers, and how our taxpayers' dollars are going to be put into work. And another thing is that the city has also recently engaged with this whole idea of promoting healthy communities in partnership with the Virginia Municipal League. So what Old Town Medical Center, in my opinion, does is no different. It really serves a real need for our citizens. And just like the story I mentioned before with this individual, these include taxpayers. These are folks that have jobs in our community, that just live, paycheck to paycheck, and the demographics not limited necessarily to just one segment of our community. And in my line, that falls in line with local government's most basic tenet, which is to provide that quality of service for its citizens. So as council continues to articulate a vision for our future, I not only ask, but I urge my colleagues to consider a more holistic approach, and to keep an open mind as we look for opportunities to broaden this policy framework. For one, it is promoting economic development. Since we are a dominant services industry, we benefit from a healthy workforce. A healthy workforce promotes a healthy economy. And I think for young professionals and young families that we're trying to attract to this community, having options like Old Town Medical Center is a relief for them. And I think we have an opportunity with a rare public-private partnership like Old Town Medical Center to tackle local healthcare needs, especially now that we have a lot of uncertainties with our federal and state healthcare systems. So again, thank you, Dr. Mann, for your presentation. And thank you for your time, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comment. I would add that many people don't realize this, but 95% of our patients are employed, and many of them work more than one job. Unfortunately, most of them are working at minimum wage or off the books, and most of them do not have medical benefits.
Mr. Foster?
So you have an opportunity to interact with individuals in this community in a very personal way. Talk about your thoughts for the future, the challenges you anticipate, so that we might learn from that and be able to anticipate some local government issues that.
Well, at the current time, 65% of the patients we see are being treated for a chronic medical disease. Now, if you go to a private family practice doctor, in his practice, one would expect 15% of their patients to have chronic disease. So we are, in fact, dealing with a large population of chronic diseases. And of these patients, about 88% also have a behavioral health disorder. So there's clearly a need to recognize the increasing demand for behavioral health services in our community and, of course, throughout the whole state of Virginia. We're also working very hard to try to create in these patients a sense of responsibility for their own well-being. We have a problem that a lot of these patients have grown up in a culture where preventative care was either not available or just was not considered. We do emergency extractions for the emergency rooms here because, of course, if you go to an emergency room with a gunshot or you get run over by a truck, they'll take care of you. If you go there with an abscessed tooth, they tell you to go to a dentist. And if you had a dentist, you wouldn't have gone to the emergency room. And so we've done as many as 5 emergency extractions in one day. And we recently did one on a 40-year-old gentleman, and we were talking to him during the procedure, and we asked him when was the last time he'd been to a dentist. And his answer was he'd never been to a dentist. We asked why, and he said, well, because I never had any dental problems. So we really need to start developing a culture here where people understand that preventative care is just as important as acute management of problems. And I think these are the challenges that will be coming up. These are very hard and very slow things to change because the culture of health is one that you grow up with. Thank you.
You mentioned that 90% of the patients come from York, James, and Williamsburg. Of that, what's the percentage that are Williamsburg residents?
Well, we have about 5,000 patients. We're probably looking at a little around 1,500 or so that are from the city of Williamsburg.
And you also
and the average patient in our clinic has about 2.6 visits per year.
And you mentioned as far as translating, being able to offer translating services for anyone who comes in. How many languages are identified from the patients?
About 18% of our patients are Spanish and speak Spanish. Now, in our pregnant patients, it's about 35% of our patients are Spanish. But we also intermittently will find, for a while we were having a slew of Romanian patients come into our clinic unexplained. We also had some Cantonese speakers. And the service we have actually is available for all of these languages. But the predominant issue that we deal with is Hispanic.
Do you have volunteer translators, or do you have someone else?
With the new law, you have to have what's known as medically certified translators. In the old days, if you just had somebody that could speak Spanish, then they would quote your translator. Well, now, unless they've been certified as a medical translator, then they're not able to do that for you. So we have certified medical translators available.
What is the prospect for, let's say, additional federal funding for Old Town? Is that a likelihood, or are there grants available for?
The Affordable Care Act has billions with a B of dollars available to federally qualified health centers. We cannot become a federally qualified health center because geographically we are located in a community where the population density and the number of physicians available exceeds that which would be recognized as a needy area. There are also federal funds, millions with an M, available to rural health clinics. However, the Government Accounting Office now feels that from Baltimore to the coast of North Carolina, including our community, is a metropolitan area so we are not eligible for rural health plans. They do not recognize us as being rural. So our access to federal funds is extraordinarily limited, and it's also unclear how this funding is going to be affected with the next president. Right now, we don't have access to any federal funding.
Thank you, Dr. Mann, for coming. You certainly brought to light some interesting numbers. I am surprised to see that the percentage of uninsured patients is on the rise. It does seem counterintuitive
It certainly does.
to what we aspire with the Affordable Health Care Act. And thank you, Councilman Zhang, for your comments.
We suspect that part of that may be due to the fact that there are a lot of full-time employees who are opting out of being covered, and that there are also, because the ACA says that if you work more than 30 hours a week, you're considered full-time and you have to be offered benefit. So we suspect we're seeing a markedly increase in the number of part-time employees, therefore are not required to have benefits, that are coming to our clinic.
That makes sense. So, saying thank you, Councilman Zhang, for his comments, and because I feel much the same way that he does about our responsibility to help those that can't help themselves. And Old Town does provide a service that I think a lot of people that I see, I work in the service industry as well, and certainly have a lot of those folks in and around what I do on a daily basis. But one of the things that surprises me is when I'm introduced to a new employee or a colleague, is their unfamiliarity with Old Town Medical Center. And so obviously there's lots of sources out there for you to promote yourselves and your services. Are you challenged in any way? Or what?
This is an interesting problem because we've been there 22 years now. And at least once a week, we have somebody that comes in and has care and says, boy, this is great. When did you guys open? And we talk to them and find out they've been in the community for 20 years or something. Reaching our patient population is difficult. We use bus ads. I personally visit, and have some other of my staff. We visit with as many of the churches and community centers as we can. We participate in all of the support for the homeless, trying to get the message out there, but it's very difficult. TV ads don't reach our population. Newspaper ads don't reach our population. We have a survey which we do constantly, looking at patient satisfaction and ways that we can improve our services. And over 93% of the patients that are referred to us are referred by word of mouth. And then the next most common group is some other community center has referred them. They're not seeing advertising, even though we do it, and they're not seeing our signs. It's all word of mouth.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.
Thank you.
Just another question or two, if you don't mind. You talked about, or Mr. Pons was alluding to the fact that there might be many other people in the community who could benefit from the services of Old Town Medical Center. What is your capacity for handling more patients as you're currently set up?
We could easily handle another 3,000 patient visits here. We have the capacity. We have an excellent facility. We have 14 examination rooms for the medical side, and we have 4 dental suites, and we could easily handle another 3,000 visits. So we would welcome everybody spreading the word that we're here, and please come.
And you mentioned the various ways that you raise money on your own through special events. You talked about the 5K. And you also benefit from public support, individuals contributing
Yes, sir.
money. If there's anybody listening or watching at home who is interested in getting involved or helping out in some way, what is the best way that they might do that?
They can either call our number or go to our website, which is oldtownmedicalcenter.com, and all of the contact information is there.
And your number?
Our number is 259-3258.
Thank you very much to you and to the entire staff for all that you do for this community. It fills a tremendous gap in a very important way, and we're grateful for everything that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This takes us to our reports. We have the monthly financial statement. Mr. Collins, is there anything you'd like to highlight?
I'll just point out that in the revenues, the trends are continuing with room sales being right around flat from previous year to about 1% below. Looking back at the November numbers, food and beverage meal tax is still performing ahead of expectation. So revenues as a whole are trending with budget. We're keeping expenses down, as you'll notice, and we'll continue that through the second half of the fiscal year. If you have any particular questions, Phil Serra, the finance director, and I are here to answer any questions you have.
Seeing none, we'll move on to monthly departmental operating reports.
The one I'd point out is just the increase in permits. I asked staff about what was driving the larger number of permits. And they deal with trade permits that are being issued right now. There's an increase of trade permits based on timeshares. Trade permits for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fuel gas issued for the Patrick Henry timeshares on York Street. So that's what's driving those numbers, one that stuck out to me. But if you have any other, staff's here to answer for you.
Questions? No, that takes us to city manager reports, the first of which is the request of the Muscarelli Museum of Art for tourism promotion contingency funding for the Botticelli exhibition.
And I do see Aaron DeGraff here and also Karen Reardon from the Chamber and Tourism Alliance. If there's any follow-up questions, I'll begin with a brief staff report and then hand the podium to them where they can elaborate on their request to council, and council can ask them any questions you may have. The request is for $40,000 from the Tourism Promotion Contingency Fund. The application was submitted to the city manager's office consistent with the policy that was provided and adopted by council. The request is for marketing funds for the Botticelli exhibit. The show features 16 Botticelli paintings from major museums and churches in 6 Italian cities. It's an exhibit described as, quote, the largest and most important exhibition of Botticelli ever. The event is anticipated to be comparative to the 2000 Michelangelo exhibition and the 2015 Leonardo da Vinci exhibition. So this is the next in a series of principal exhibits that Muscarelli and William and Mary is bringing to our community. The staff committee reviewed the application and found overall the application consistent with the adopted policy of council, in that this is a new exhibit. It's not a continuing activity or event, so it's adding to what's already in Williamsburg currently. It is anticipated to drive overnight visitation. While there are not specific numbers provided, they did demonstrate that during the past exhibit that revenues received from the city for tourism and tourism-related revenues increased from prior year from the last event. Exact return on investment not being provided. They are willing to provide marketing, attendance, and return on investment data with the city at the conclusion of the activity. They are willing to indicate that the city is a sponsor of the exhibition. And the museum itself did not receive funding during the last exhibit. The Chamber and Tourism Alliance received $50,000 from the city through this fund also back in 2015 to do out-of-market marketing for that exhibition. So this is a new request for the museum to receive it. They may be able to provide more details about who will be doing the marketing for them. And they provided a general marketing plan that was provided to council in your packet. If you have any questions for me or for the applicant, I'd be happy to address those. But I'd like to provide the opportunity for the applicant to present their application to council as well.
Welcome, Mr. DeGraft.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm going to hit the wrong buttons here. Simply put, this is
paintings with you?
Huh?
Did you bring any of the paintings with you?
On my phone. Like I said, simply put, this is an embarrassment of riches. There are 28 total paintings. There are 16 Botticellis. They're coming from 6 Italian cities, 21 lenders. The exhibition is only going to go to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the number 5 museum in the country, and this is our 4th partnership and project with the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. We thought this in collaboration with the Chamber and Ms. Reardon that this was in some ways almost a no-brainer because of the weakness of the tourism season being exactly at this time. This was not a one-day event or even a 2 or 3 day festival, which I'm not putting them down. I think a rising tide floats all the boats. But this is for almost 7 weeks. And we're putting $75,000 into the marketing budget. Some of you all have seen that, I guess, most shockingly noteworthy is a full page in the New York Times. This is the 3rd time that's happened. We have multiple ads in regional magazines. I have one from the Virginia Living magazine that's already come out in a story. The Alumni magazine reaches 96,000 alums. Our second ad was in there. The Leonardo exhibition and the Michelangelo show both each garnered 1 billion media impressions. And you may say, what is a media impression? Well, it's all traditional print, electronic, and social media that can be tracked. It's every time that someone has a possibility to put their eyes on your brand. And what this does, as we move forward to announce a top 5 architect in the world that is designing our new Center for the Visual Arts, the Martha Wren Briggs Center of the Visual Arts in the Muscarelli Museum. This just is a way to build an even stronger brand of this Williamsburg being an arts destination. We partner with a variety of other local entities. One of the, as I showed you, one of the key images is a full-size standing Venus. So we've talked creatively about what can we do at Valentine's Day. Local businesses, hotels, restaurants, etc. This request specifically focuses on targeting the greater Northern Virginia area, where there's 14 million people in the greater Northern Virginia area, and also on the Raleigh, Durham, and potentially Charlotte areas, places that we really wouldn't focus on with the money that we have because of the kind of publicity and stories that are coming out. For example, we've been in the New York Times, we've been in the Wall Street Journal, we've been in all kinds of things. It's just been an embarrassment of riches. However, one of the lead feature writers for the Wall Street Journal is coming down here to write a feature story upon visiting. They've never done that before. And so we expect the same kind of visitation, the same kind of numbers, if not more, from the previous Michelangelo and Leonardo show. The Leonardo exhibition, we did over 60,000 people in attendance in 6 weeks. Now, you all know the museum because you've been there. Can you imagine 10,000 people a week coming through those doors? It's amazing. The Michelangelo show did about 53,000 over 7 weeks. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but we really appreciate your taking the time to listen and to consider this request.
In many ways, I see the Muscarelli as a found destination driver. It's been here for a long time, but in the past several years, with your efforts, it's been able to put together some awesome exhibits.
Thank you.
I appreciate your willingness to reach out into the community and make an asset of William & Mary a tourism driver. Your effort in that way has been unparalleled out of the college. On top of it all, you're doing it in a space that, as 4 years at William & Mary, I generally walked by and didn't give much thought. So you're out kicking your coverage in a lot of ways. So happy to support this. I really appreciate your efforts to to bridge that gap between the city and the college. This is something that Williamsburg is lucky to have.
Well, we see it as a rising tide floats all the boats. We had a collaboration with Colonial Williamsburg for a Leonardo da Vinci weekend, for which 80 couples came specifically for that weekend of art, golf, special tours, including the person who came the farthest from Sydney, Australia, to see this exhibition. So we're not here to take away from anybody else. We're here to rise the tide of town in all ways, so thank you.
Well, I agree with Scott and with everyone else that this is very impressive for a town and the museum the size of the Muscarelli to bring such exhibits here, and that it provides an opportunity for the city to partner with the college for the benefit of both. You mentioned having a partnership with CW for a weekend a couple years ago. Do you foresee doing something similar for this one, where you would be able to track the room nights of people coming in?
Right, we're working on a variety of partnerships, including the Virginia Tourism Corporation for Tourism. We're going to have a presence at the East Coast Gateway. We're working on things, like I said, this Valentine's Day weekend around the Venus. This image of Venus, this is the icon of the exhibition, so you're going to see it on the road signs up and down Jamestown Road and Richmond Road. It's very, very rare, because one of the most beloved paintings of all time is in the Great Uffizi Museum, called The Birth of Venus by Botticelli. This is the figure of Venus. He painted her at least 2 more times before some were thrown on the bonfires of the vanities. In reality, they were burned up. So yes, to get back around, we are working on a variety of print, social media, electronic media partnerships with restaurants, Colonial Williamsburg, and also with the Chamber and Tourism Alliance.
And there's one other thing I was going to ask you here. As far as, do you all keep track of like the zip codes of people coming in when they do buy the tickets?
We do.
To provide access of where people have come in?
Yes, we do that.
And is there a capacity limit to the museum? I mean, as Scott said, we've all been there, and it's not huge.
Yes, it's challenging, because when you arrive in the morning and you have 400 people waiting outside, maybe the National Gallery in Washington, this is an everyday occurrence. For us, it's not. We have capacity space upstairs where the exhibition will be. We have spillover space downstairs, and of course we have to keep people outside. That's not pleasant, but this is in many ways why we've worked so hard over the past 10 years to do more with more, not do more with less. And the new museum will be at least 3 times the size, probably 4 times the size.
Then you can bring them all in together.
Well, that's right. And you can't visit and see any of the permanent collection today. However, during this exhibition, we decided to shamelessly promote some of our accomplishments, and the exhibitions downstairs will be highlights of new acquisitions. And these are things, the main exhibition is on connoisseurship. It's about 7 paintings that we managed to acquire off the art market that were completely misunderstood. So there'll be some big names. We've worked very hard over the past 3 years. Some have had extensive scientific analysis. So it'll also get to show visitors to Williamsburg and also locals what they have in their community that they'll be able to see in the new museum every day.
Well, I do applaud the way that the exhibits have been displayed. I was at the Brafferton exhibit, and it was both impressive and interesting. I learned a lot. And one last question. I was curious about the Charlotte-Raleigh market, because I know that typically the Chamber has felt that hasn't been as good of a market for Williamsburg as other markets. And so I was a little curious as to why that one was chosen specifically for the exhibit.
Maybe Ms. Reardon can help me answer that question.
Ms. Reardon, would you mind, please?
For the sake of the camera, if you could join Aaron at that podium, that would help as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's also easier then for people at home to hear.
Thank you. Although it's true that in the last 2 years, as we track, that Raleigh-Durham has not been as strong as the Washington, D.C. market and Baltimore, it is still one of our core feeder markets. And in working with Aaron and Christina, some of, again, the zip code analysis that they have shows that it is a strong market for the Muscarelli. And so it's our collective wisdom that we can attract visitors from that market to come to this exhibition. So again, we always look at all of those factors. We would love to be able to do more in additional markets, just even ambitiously taking on the Northern Virginia sort of DC corridor, as you all know, is very expensive. So again, with the funds that are available, we're hoping that we'd be able to really make a dent in that market, and then also have Aaron's team make a dent in the Raleigh-Durham area. So again, it is one of our core feeders. It's just not recently been as strong as, say, Washington, D.C. for us.
Well, this is a good opportunity to test it out. So, yeah, it's a great thing for Williamsburg and for the Muscarelli to have it coming.
Thank you, Dr. DeGraw, for coming. I must admit, I thought Botticelli was a pair of shoes that I would never own, so glad now to know that it's art.
There's a
and,
huge educational component to this.
But what's not new to me is the concept of the Muscarelli and what it does for the community. What you've done, bringing previous exhibits of this nature and this size and scale and uniqueness to Williamsburg, and the residual benefit that's had on the overall economy. But moreover, to your point about just your billion impressions, it's about building the brand. It's about getting the message of Williamsburg out there. And if arts is one of those messages that we want to communicate and grow on as an economy, then this is a valuable opportunity for us to take advantage of. So thank you for bringing this to us.
So when the Da Vinci exhibit was on display, I was actually one of those students waiting outside for 30 minutes, and it was totally worth it. And I think to the Vice Mayor's point, I think for the first time, a lot of the students that I was in line with had never been into the Muscarel, which is a shame. And I agree and totally echo with all what my council members have said as well. I just had a quick question, because it's coming from my days as a former student, but what was kind of the volume like for the Da Vinci? And I know the parking is restricted for faculty, and there's also certain students parking. So, it's the volume, the capacity, and then the parking issue. How do you do to resolve that?
Well, that's why there's a number of great partnerships going on, because obviously we're partnering with the college and parking services. We actually reserve spaces right out in front of the museum. But the greater partnership is with the city. And that is, and the president's office at the college have always been very supportive. And parking services at William & Mary had negotiated to use the street, just like the churches do on Sundays. Mm-hmm. So we had only one complaint about parking during the Leonardo show, and it came from an adjunct faculty member about not being able to find a space to go meet a student for class. Yet, when you have, on average, 10,000 people a week that can park on the street from the top edge of our circle all the way down potentially to the corner, and parking services is helping to man that, staff it, and direct people, and the college has agreed to allow it to be used in that way. It all came together. The Michelangelo show was a nightmare because we had almost as many people, and we had constant complaints about parking because we didn't know we could solicit to potentially partner on the street. Yes, the night that we had the student opening, 1,500 students came for dessert with Leonardo, and these exhibitions, and I'm not exaggerating, they're once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. You can't go anywhere in the world today and see more than 3 or 4 Michelangelo drawings, and that'd be in Florence, Italy, at his home, the Casa Buonarroti. You can't go anywhere in the world and see one Leonardo da Vinci drawing today, and we had almost 30. The Botticellis, you have to go all over to see these things, but when the cultural attaché of the Italian embassy says this is the largest and most important Botticelli show ever, that's not lost on us. But it's also befitting our great college. It's also befitting our wonderful city as revolutionary thinkers. And so we feel that it's just part of the reason why we do what we do with great scholarship. And so we have to deal with the capacity issues. We have a whole different visitor services concept with being met at the door, time tickets, a desk, people that are actually working to make the experience a positive one.
I just have another follow-up question. This time I'm speaking as a Burns Lane resident. Were there any parking issues? Because I know for some of our football games, they have people park along the entrance sides of Jamestown Road neighborhoods. So did you experience any difficulties with that? And if so,
we're told by our parking services that between 200 to 300 cars park illegally every day. Mm-hmm. There's either not enough parking or they don't have passes.
So that's not an issue.
So in your neighborhood, that has been an issue. We got no complaints because there's signage and persons out there saying, Botticelli park here, all up and down the street. So we had no problems with that.
Great. Well, I'm excited to support this proposal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And if you don't mind, just a couple more questions, actually really more comments. One question. Ms. Ramsey asked about the Raleigh and Charlotte markets, and I think that's a good question because this community, in a variety of ways, has been in and out of that area over the past 15 years. And we've even gone as far west as Pittsburgh and Cleveland at times, when we felt like we had the resources to do that. There's nothing we can't do if we're willing to provide the money to do it. The challenge is how do you most effectively allocate the resources that you have for the greatest possible return. What really appeals to me about this effort of the Muscarelli to promote this exhibition in the Raleigh and Charlotte areas is that it's a completely different draw to this community from our traditional draws of amusement parks, historical tourism. This is something that either they're going to go to Boston or they're not going to see it. So if they can drive 3 or 5 hours up to Williamsburg to see it, it might get people here who otherwise wouldn't make the trip. And since it's an incremental marketing effort on top of what you're already planning to do, then it just adds to the potential for this to really make a difference in the community at a difficult time. And it also diversifying, we talk about diversifying the economy all the time. This is diversifying the tourism economy. It's creating, because the tourism revenue that we draw is some of the most valuable we could ever hope to get. And finding different ways to bring people here, to expose them to all the community has to offer, at the same time as Mr. Pons referenced, reinforcing that brand of Williamsburg as an arts destination, and not just because we have some nice festivals and wonderful art shows. I mean, this is world-class stuff. I mean, this is really important. So, I mean, I think it's a tremendous idea. And I also like the idea of leveraging future publicity on the museum complex with the expansion, when you can capture people's attention with the landmark exhibition and then come back before too long with more news about how the facility is going to be even better. It's another way to double the impact of that for the same amount of money. So my one question to you is, what's next?
Well, I could retire. We do have plans. We've already started working on the next 2 big exhibitions that sound like shoes. But we're also planning the inaugural exhibition for the new building, which will be slightly different. It's got a French theme and one of the greatest names of the French Impressionists. So, look, we try to challenge ourselves. Having a faculty show is just as important as having a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. What we offer is a menu for people of all ages, of all types, and we're going to do that better. Of course, we focus on college kids now as a university museum, but we have collections in the new galleries that are much more expansive, that include non-Western art, works on paper, decorative art, sculpture, paintings, and so this is a long time in coming. You know, the College of William & Mary was the first university, the first college to teach art. A lot of people don't realize that in 1779, Robert Andrews came to teach art at the same time they were forming the law school. We were also the first college university to collect art in 1732. And so these are the things I need to say a lot because it's important in the community in general. The college is extremely important. And so, but we couldn't not do what we do without the support of the college or with the people of Williamsburg. I appreciate you all's recognition, and we very humbly appreciate it very much. And we appreciate your support.
In addition to being an external draw, this is also a tremendous quality of life benefit for the people who live in this community. So for those residents who may want to come see the exhibition, how would they go about getting tickets? It's advanced purchase, or you can sell out, I guess, theoretically on certain days?
We haven't had that problem. I don't think we've kept the hours. We've extended the hours. You can go online, buy tickets. You can call. You can come by. You can buy them day of. There will be specific tour times and dates. You can also arrange to have tours you can visit on your own. We will have a gallery guide. There is a scholarly catalog, but it is an easy read and it's been groundbreaking. But yeah, the challenge is when you have too many people, for what the fire marshal says, then people have to wait outside. And that happened quite frequently during the Leonardo exhibition. But the safety of the art and the safety of the patrons is of utmost importance.
And your website is?
Muscarelli.org, www.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one last question. Just as a recap on the expansion, when is it anticipated to start and to finish so we can start already plan for that inaugural exhibition?
We hope to make an announcement on the architects in the next few weeks. The architect, we've gone through a process. An architectural firm has been selected. They've had to submit some paperwork, so they're not final signatures. We have a meeting tomorrow about this. On the timeline, They get anywhere from 10 to 14 months to work on the feasibility, concepts, schematics, the creative side, and the college is helping they're project managing this with us based on private fundraising that we've done. So I hope the next 2 years, 2.5 years, they can design things pretty quickly and well, and they can build things pretty quickly and well. So I hope I'm not being hugely optimistic there, but that's what we hope.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
So back to us. The request is for $40,000. I think it's important to note that the Tourism Contingency Fund or Tourism Promotion Contingency Fund currently only has a balance of $36,835. The question is, does council want to approve the funding, and at what level?
Mr. Mayor, I'm very comfortable funding the full request using the balance of the fund that not the contingency fund, but the tourism promotion contingency fund, and then finding the money, the balance elsewhere. I think for all the reasons that we've just explained here at council, it makes sense to me. Recommended.
No objection. I'll make a motion if there's.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, I move the City Council approve the funding request of the Muscarelli Museum of Art for $40,000, with $36,835 from the Tourism Promotion Contingency Fund and $3,165 from the operating contingency for marketing the Botticelli exhibition between February 11th and April 6, 2017 in the city of Williamsburg.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Mr. Zhang?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Takes us to the second city manager report, Quarter Path Recreation Center chiller replacement.
Good afternoon. The chiller located at the Quarter Path Recreation Center is 21 years old, which exceeds the 15-year expectancy for that type of equipment by 6 years. The unit is showing signs of failure, and the control boards are obsolete and no longer available. Since the Quarter Path Recreation Center serves as the city's emergency shelter, it's essential that we make that replacement now. This project will be a sole source purchase from Demuth Train. Demuth Train has been selected based on past experience with their performance and responsiveness. Additionally, the city has standardized the HVAC systems equipment in its public buildings to ensure reliable and compatible equipment and parts. $175,000 was budgeted in FY17 for this project. The cost of the new equipment, including installation, is $160,586, which falls within the allotted budget. And the project is expected to take about 3 months to complete. I have with me here today a representative from Demuth Train, as well as Tom Leach.
Thank you, Ms. Hutton. Questions?
This is a very logical move.
Yes.
Good service. I hope I could get that out of one at a house. So.
I had a quick question. Unless if you had.
No, sir.
You said that the current one, it's usually the life expectancy is 15 years, and the current one is 21 years?
21, yes.
So was that just a really good HVAC, or is that?
It's served us very well. It's kind of been duct taped together here over the past couple of years, so to speak. So,
Okay.
but no, it was a good unit, and the unit that we're looking at is exceptional as well.
Okay, great.
That speaks to another reason to stay with the same company, and the fact that it's sort of keeping with what's being done in other buildings in the city.
Yeah, as we strive to encourage healthy behaviors and public participation in our parks and recreation offerings, there are few things that could be a greater deterrent than a recreation center that does not have adequate air conditioning, particularly in this climate in the summertime. So if we really want to provide a quality experience for our residents, I think this is something we most definitely should do.
Mr. Mayor, I move the City Council award the purchase and installation contract to Demuth Train for the chiller and upgrade of the building automated system in the amount of $160,586.00.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Zhang?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
This takes us to our third city manager report, the Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan, proposed resolution 17-01.
Mayor Freiling, members of council, as you saw from your packet, this is an extremely lengthy document, so I'm going to try to cover some of the high points for you. As you know, the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires localities to adopt a hazard mitigation plan so that we're eligible for pre- and post-disaster mitigation funds from FEMA. The Disaster Act also requires that we update this plan every 5 years. So the plan before you today, submitted for your consideration today, is our 5-year update. In our previous plan was a collaborative effort between the peninsula localities. FEMA has changed their guidance and broadened their scope on what they considered a regional plan. So in order for us to be eligible for funding to assist with this plan, the development of this plan, we had to partner with the 22 communities that you see there on your screen. This was a huge undertaking. But really, it was turned out to be about a 2-year project. And so all these 22 localities came together. The Hampton Roads Planning District submitted an application to FEMA on behalf of these 22 localities to obtain grant funding to assist, basically hire a consultant to lead us through this process. The first thing we had to do was organize a Williamsburg team of subject matter experts. And as you can see there, our subject matter experts came from emergency management, public works, planning, code compliance, communication, Colonial Williamsburg, and the College of William and Mary. I would like to thank our team. Again, it was about a 2-year project. There was a lot of work that went into this. And as you can imagine, with 22 communities coming together, at times it was pretty challenging to come to a consensus agreement. I think one day we spent about 8 hours just wordsmithing some of the document. So it was extremely challenging. But we had Dan Clayton, Carolyn Murphy, Matt Westheimer, Leanne Hartman, Karen Stone from Colonial Williamsburg, and Kenton Towner from the College of William and Mary that participated on our team as subject matter experts for this plan. So FEMA provided us some 10-step process within their 4-phase guidance, and that was organizing our resources. Then we had to assess the risk and then look at developing a mitigation plan and then adopt and implement the plan. Today we're at that adoption phase, and after the plan is adopted, it's been received approval from FEMA, tentative approval. Once the resolutions are adopted by the 22 communities, it goes back to FEMA for final approval. As I mentioned earlier, prior to this year's update, we had several plans throughout the Hampton Roads area. We had a Peninsula Hazard Mitigation Plan. Some localities had individual plans. So taking this broader approach to a regional plan allowed us the opportunity to take all of those plans and incorporate them into one multi-jurisdictional plan. And as you saw in your packets, and as we go through this presentation today, even though it's a multi-jurisdictional plan, in Section 7 of the plan, we still have strategies broken down for each locality that are specific to that locality. The final hazards that were examined, the 11 that you see on the screen there, again, these 11 hazards were priorities for all 22 communities. However, they may not impact all 22 communities. As y'all know from this region, a lot of localities have concerns about flooding. It's not necessarily an issue for Williamsburg, so not all of those 11 hazards impact all 22 localities. Once we identified those hazards, we went through a process of ranking the hazards and what impact they have on the community. You see there from critical risk, critical hazard, high risk, down to negligible, and then each of those 11 hazards were placed into one of those categories. And in taking those previous plans, each of those individual plans or regional plans, such as the Peninsula Plan, had goals and objectives in the plan. So we looked at all of those goals and objectives from all of the communities, and this was really a big task to come down to 3 primary goals for this Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan. Along with these 3 goal areas, there are about 11 objectives that fit into the 3 major goal areas. Increase community resiliency by reducing vulnerability to hazards, educate the public about hazard vulnerabilities and way to reduce risk, and strengthen and develop partnerships for mitigating hazard impacts. So those were our 3 primary goal areas that we're focused on as we move through this plan. Then we looked at categories of mitigation activities. Again, just keep in mind that there's under preventive measures, there's certain things that other localities may implement that's not going to affect Williamsburg because it's just not a strategy. We don't have a hazard that affects us that requires that. So preventive measures, property protection measures, emergency services measures, natural resource protection measures, structural projects, and public information. And you can see there's various ways under each one of those mitigation activities to accomplish those things. Again, another area of the plan that was difficult to work our way through when you had that many people at the table. So then you get to Section 7 that talks about the 9 key mitigation strategies and actions for the city of Williamsburg. Improve the drainage maintenance system, including increased sediment and debris clearance. That speaks to keeping our stormwater system functioning properly, so during storm events that it reduces our chance of flooding. Continuing participation with the National Flood Insurance Program. Maintaining our storm-ready community designation. Assist community leaders and emergency managers with ensuring that we have proper communication, and it enhances our safety programs. We are reviewed on that every 3 years, so we go through that process and make sure that we still have all those systems in place. The Colonial Williamsburg Annual Tree Maintenance Program, someone may say, well, what's the tree program have to do with that? Well, they do seasonal inspections and trimming, which reduces storm damage from some of the large trees that they have there. And in fact, it's helped us from the fire department perspective as we respond to calls. We've actually had to call in areas that we're limiting access because of the height of our equipment continues to get higher and higher when it was damaging our equipment. So they've always been taking care of that so that we have access to property in Colonial Williamsburg. Our shelter generator maintenance program, that's so that we make sure all of our critical facilities that have generators are fully operational when we need them. Our generator maintenance program, each day I get an email on the 3 generators for Quarter Path Recreation, the police department, and the fire station. Tells me the status of those generators so that we're quickly identified if we have any problem. And then we also have a maintenance program that we carry out with a vendor each year. All right, GIS digital mapping, that just gives us the opportunity to recognize and plan some various hazards, maybe special needs populations, evacuation routes, as we continue to develop our GIS mapping program. Obviously, we want to continue to expand and train our CERT groups, especially in communication about mitigation and response. We already use this, have it in place, but it expedites our damage assessment with Matt Westheimer and his staff and Carolyn and her staff using Crisis Track to conduct damage assessment. It gets us the information a lot quicker so we can send that information to the state, but it also allows them to expedite permitting for damaged structures so we can get that process started much quicker. And then social media and Everbridge, we hope to expand that communication for pre- and post-disaster. Obviously, if we have the community helping us, it builds a safer community. But also, if we continue to do that, they're responsive to our messages. A great example was the winter storm this past weekend. The community did an excellent job in responding to our messages, staying off the roads and staying home, and it really reduced the number of incidents that we had related to that event. So what's left is we have to implement the mitigation strategies. As with any plan, putting the plan together was a challenge, but now we have to implement those strategies. And we also have to conduct revisions and updates and provide an annual progress report. And then in 5 years, we will go through this process again to make sure that our plan is current. Even though it's required by FEMA every 5 years, we'll be conducting an annual update to make sure that that actions haven't changed or there's something that's come up in the community that we need to address. City Council's action is we need to, the plans before you, adopt the 2017 Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan. And as I said earlier, once the plan is adopted, the resolution goes in the plan, becomes a part of the plan, it goes back to FEMA for final approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Foster.
Chief Dent, thank you for your leadership on this. Is there any chance any of those other localities?
No, well, again, we've never had a Hampton Roads, but I wouldn't imagine, because it's required by FEMA, so it affects their funding. And again, a lot of those localities who are impacted by flooding, especially, it's critical to them that they have a plan in place so that they can receive that grant funding from FEMA.
And the takeaways that you listed, those are already part of some other action plan. That's not we're not creating an additional task, you know.
The strategies that we have listed for Williamsburg, they're already in place. Some of them are just enhancing those strategies,
Gotcha.
And the others are just continuing those strategies.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your work on this, and it's nice to see the federal government doing something logical that makes sense as far as doing it regionally as opposed to the individual communities. So that's good. You mentioned that the hazards were ranked and that some of the hazards in the various communities were different than Williamsburg. Do you internally rank Williamsburg's hazards, say a little differently than what would be in the plan, or?
What we would consider critical for Williamsburg may not be critical to another locality. Again, the big thing that always comes up for a lot of the Hampton Roads regions is flooding, so that becomes a critical. That's why in the plan in Section 7, we broke the critical strategies down for each locality independently, even though it's a regional plan. So their critical hazards are going to be different than what Williamsburg's critical hazards are. And again, that was the difficulty in putting this plan together with 22 communities, is trying to be regional, but also trying to individualize our own hazards.
No, it all looks good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief, a lot of work, no question. I can't imagine just organizing their schedules, a single meeting versus all the other stuff that goes on in these things. Any shucks, we didn't think of that through this whole process? Or I heard you to say that a lot of what's in this plan is what we already have in our internal plans.
Yeah, it was nothing that was really an aha moment for us. We were pretty aware. We knew this was coming up, so I'd already been in contact with all the other people that I assumed we would have together on our team. One thing I did fail to mention early on is that it's required by FEMA, and we actually, for this plan, we actually went beyond FEMA's requirements. Is all through this process, the citizens had the opportunity to provide input either through online surveys, and we hosted a number of public meetings across the region to make it accessible for everyone. So the public had ample opportunity to provide input into this plan as well.
Thank you so much.
Chief, it seems that based upon the localities that are involved, it seems we cross one river but not the other. Are we separate from Gloucester and Matthews? And
They are building their regional plan for their area.
And is the logic of us being associated with the communities on the other side of the James related in any way to the Surrey power plant?
No, sir. It was really just an opportunity. I don't think anybody would have been turned away. It was an opportunity because there's a lot of funding that goes into this when you hire a consultant to lead you through the process. And I'm supportive. Sometimes I'm not a fan of the consultant aspect, but for this process with bringing this number of communities together, it was important to have a consultant to lead us through that process. So everybody was provided the opportunity to become a part of the plan. And So it was an individual choice whether they wanted to participate in this Hampton Roads plan.
And is there ever participation of other elements of the private sector? I mean, the one that strikes me, well, Dominion would be one, but the other is CSX. With the movement of freight through a community, potentially hazardous freight at times, you can have significant issues as a result. Are they ever part of these plans?
They are. And most emergency managers are fully aware of what travels up and down the tracks here, so we take that into consideration when you go into this planning process. But yes, sir, and they are also a part of our quarterly meetings for that. All the emergency managers are there. CSX is a part of it. Dominion is part of those meetings. So we're constantly gaining input from them as well.
And does having the larger regional plan in any way complicate an individual community's ability to extract their own information, or do they pull out from the larger plan their own little Ivor, Williamsburg, or Newport News related information?
It doesn't complicate it. I think the most complicated part was the process. And once the plan's together, we know where to go get Williamsburg information, or the other localities know how they want to set their plan up. But the most difficult part was the process and the implementation and continuing.
And if anybody really wanted to avail themselves of the riveting prose of the 800 pages between the plan and the appendices, can they do that on our website? Or
Once we have final approval, it will be posted. It may take a while after. Not everyone. I don't know all the adoption schedules for the other localities. We obviously just received the plan, and so it may take some time to get all the adoption process done. But yes, sir, once we receive final approval, it will be posted for review.
Great.
And it's certainly public information now because it's part of our packet.
But for people's ability to see it sometimes is to make it easy for them to get to it.
Mayor, I move that City Council approve proposed resolution 17-01 endorsing the 2017 Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Zhang.
Aye.
Mr. Pons.
Aye.
Mayor Fryling.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
This brings us to the fourth city manager report, the interim clerk of council appointment.
Staff is requesting council to appoint Donna Scott to the position of clerk of council effective February 1st, 2017, to ensure we remain compliance with state requirements to have an appointed clerk of council due to the retirement of our current clerk of council. Donna Scott has offered to carry on that position for an interim period until we replace the executive assistant and make a decision on the position that holds the clerk of council title.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for continuing to help us out, Ms. D. Thanks.
Yes, I second that.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say, as long as Mrs. Walton's done a wonderful job for these past many years. Thank you very much. We thought about declining your retirement, but that just didn't seem right.
Turns out we can.
And we can.
She's got better things to do.
But Ms. Scott, you've been doing so much for us for so long. We greatly appreciate your willingness to help out one more time.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council appoint Donna Scott to the position of Clerk of Council effective February 1st, 2017.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Zhang.
Aye.
Pons.
Aye.
Mayor Fryling.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
This takes us to the city attorney report.
I have nothing else today.
Schedule of meetings. Mr. Collins, anything you'd like to highlight? Any unfinished business anybody would like to address? Any new business anybody would like to bring up?
I just wanted to bring up that last month, Colonial Williamsburg and the Department of Homeland Security, and I think other partners as well, held a naturalization ceremony over at Colonial Williamsburg. 26 new Americans were officially, I guess, citizens. I don't really know what the word, sworn in, yeah. But just wanted to mention that it's always open to the public, and it was great to be there to witness that.
Great, thank you. With that, brings us to open forum. We have one speaker's card today, Mr. Gary Shelley. Welcome, Mr. Shelley.
And I would like to welcome, a very warm welcome to our two newest members, Ms. Ramsey and Mr. Zhang, who I've not had the pleasure of speaking before. And also I would like to congratulate you, Mr. Mayor, on being selected to be our mayor. Very well deserved. I've spoken on many occasions here in open forum, and usually I've spoken of issues that are of great importance to college students. Most importantly, I have praised our system of governance, the greatest the world has ever known. Our democracy is founded on the cornerstone that our leaders will govern honestly and transparently, and that they will respond to citizen concerns. There are checks and balances in place to ensure that this wonderful process works as designed. Citizens have the right, the duty really, to bring their concerns to the attention of their elected representatives. They can do so without fear of intimidation or retaliation, and leaders have the responsibility to respond. My appearances have not always been well received. I've been verbally attacked from the dais. I've been attacked in the press. I've had insults directed towards me, and I've been physically accosted in this room. But none of this matters. These attacks were merely attempts to deflect attention from the areas of concern of which I had spoken. One such issue concerned the missing minutes to a city council retreat, a document legally mandated by FOIA laws, one of the checks and balances designed to ensure honest and transparent government. I voiced my concern immediately upon discovery the council had not fulfilled its obligation to provide this documentation. A document was, in fact, belatedly inserted into our records. I have asked if it meets the criteria required by FOIA laws. I've noted in an email exchange that I had with our city attorney, Ms. Shelton, in which I asked if a certain matter had been discussed at that retreat. She denied that it had been discussed. I asked her how she knew it had not been discussed, and she replied, from the minutes. I then presented to council a newspaper with a headline showing that not only had the issue been discussed, it was apparently the most discussed item that day. My concerns have been ignored. Mayor, you are the only current member of council who was in attendance at that retreat. I still want to know why council did not provide minutes to the public. And I ask that you address that issue. We can only move forward when we have addressed the past. But more than anything, we need assurances from you that under your leadership, all citizen concerns will be addressed, that citizens will not need to fear retaliation or intimidation, and that our government will function honestly and transparently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley. Would anyone else like to address council today? Seeing no one, close the open forum. Do we have items for
That we do. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing one personnel matter per subparagraph 1 concerning an EDA appointment, one property matter per subparagraph 3 regarding acquisition of property for economic development, of which discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining or negotiation strategy of a public body, and two legal matters per subparagraph 7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members, consultants, or attorneys pertaining to the actual or probable litigation concerning bankruptcy and administrative claim, and consultation on specific legal matters requiring the provision of advice by counsel concerning an appeal of the decision of the Board.
Second.
Ms. Walton?
Mr. Zhang?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Fryling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
We'll take a 5-minute recess and then resume in closed session. Thank you.